Our next presenter is Miss Jennifer Davidson. She is a pastor and an end-of-life doula and also a survivor. And she is going to speak about honoring the complete cancer journey, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. She believes our medical teams do an outstanding job of diagnosing and treating our bodies when a person has cancer. What about the other aspects of the journey? This session will acknowledge the mental, emotional, and spiritual concerns of this experience and will suggest strategies for dealing with the whole person, be it in the cancer patient, the survivor, or the caregiver. Jen Davidson is a lifelong educator who's taught and presented workshops in nearly all 50 states. She was ordained as a pastor in 2017 and was certified as an end-of-life doula in 2020. She has been diagnosed with cancer twice and volunteers for support in the cancer community. Please welcome Ms. Jennifer Davidson.
When you see all the stuff I have, you'll never doubt I was a teacher. That's what I thought. That's a good one.
Do you need a helper?
I don't think so. We'll find out. All right, two things before I get down to business. Number one, it is so good to be with my people. I sat at the conference 3.5 years ago on the edge, just like I did, and 3.5 years ago I was about 9 months into the journey, and I looked across the room and I thought, oh my gosh, everybody in this room gets it, because you know what it's like to try to talk about cancer to people who love you, but they don't get it. And so to be with you guys today, once again, it's a gift beyond what I can possibly tell you, just because you get the story. Allie is one of my heroes. That must be the driver dad that we see on Facebook. Dad drives her and he says great things. She says great things about him. Kirsty's my new hero today because she's lived what I'm going to talk about, and I said I'm going to try to make eye contact with her while I'm talking. And then as shy as she is, wasn't she great for somebody who doesn't like public speaking? Yeah. And I said if I make eye contact with her and take a breath for a minute, if she wants to add something to what I'm saying, because she's walked the talk of exactly what I'm going to talk about today. Secondly, I was going to tell you that last night about 11 o'clock, I decided that we're probably not any of us going to die from cancer. We're going to die from heart failure watching Nebraska volleyball. Whoa, wasn't that something last night? Yeah, and I was thinking the very same thing. I just went to bed and I couldn't go to sleep for the longest time. Oh my goodness. Well, what Tracy said is what I'm going to talk about today. And this is the idea. I chose the word honoring real intentionally. The idea that we're going to honor the complete cancer journey. My story is that I love to be on the older end of this, Dad. You and I we're not these. Yeah, my cancer diagnosis was when I was 73. I live over here at the lodge at this retirement community, and I was just sailing through my senior life. Every woman in my family had lived well into their 90s, past 100. I'm from West Virginia. You'll hear a little of that. I lived in North Carolina, Tennessee. You'll hear that in my language, my accent. I'm just going for the annual mammogram. Hey, I'm 73 years old. I'm not going to get cancer. And bingo, there it came, breast cancer. Terrified the daylights out of me. I did the neoadjuvant treatment. Some of you have had that, where you do the chemo before you do the surgery, before you do the radiation. And then I sailed free for about 3 years. And 14 months ago, because now I'm almost heading towards 79, I had a lot of pain in this hip and knee. And so, like a lot of my senior friends were doing, I headed off to the orthopedic surgeon thinking, okay, hip replacement. I know that my time has come for the hip replacement. And the doctor, the orthopedic surgeon, came in the room after he'd taken the x-ray. God, we could be so naive. And he says to me, well now, Jen, tell me about your breast cancer. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's interested in my whole medical history. Isn't this beautiful? Well, then what he told me is there was cancer in my femur. And that's why he was interested in my journey. It had metastasized, the same HER2 positive cancer had metastasized from my breast. And then I found out, like a lot of you, that one of the places breast cancer can metastasize is to your femur. Who knew, right? Hip replacement, lots of treatment. I'm walking fairly normally, but it's been a long year. And again, start this by saying, as we think about our well-being, I want to talk about the 4 parts of that well-being. And what I've written up here is well-being, because it means to be as a whole, not just a part of who we are, but that our whole being is well. And I'll start by saying that I think there's 4 parts to that. There's the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the mental. You've heard this probably somewhere in a psychology class or something that you took. I want to say, right, as Allie and Kirsten have both done, going into this, I can't say enough good about what our teams, medical teams, do for our physical well-being. That's different than what I'm going to talk about. I don't have, just like Allie was saying, there's no right doctor, there's no right treatment, there's no right cancer center. I've had phenomenal physical treatment, or I wouldn't be standing here, through 2 rounds of chemo, lost my hair twice, all that good stuff. But I say to my oncologist, there's more to it than this. There's more to it, and this is what Kirsty did so beautifully. There's more to it, and that's what I want to talk about today. Not that, and of course, as I said in my little promo thing, I'm going to give you some strategies. I'm going to talk about it, but I'm also going to give you some things to think about. Let's begin with mental. Again, Kirsty, you've just set this up so beautifully. She talked about what it was like, not just to have a cancer diagnosis, but how your cancer changed, how your whole idea of yourself changes. And I want to do, as we talk about the mental, I want to introduce the idea. I hope you guys can see. Can you see over there, Brian, Dr. Allie's daddy? I want to talk about the idea of liminal space. If there's anything that's changed my life in the last, say, year or 2, it's this idea of liminal space. Here's what liminal space is. You've all been through it in many ways. Liminal space is where I am when I can't go back to where I was, and I can't go forward because I don't know what's out there. Example, graduating from either high school or college. When I'm back here in high school and college, I'm having a great time studying, taking my courses, kind of in a rhythm with the study and in school. Then I graduate, and I'm so excited I'm going to graduate high school or college. Bingo, liminal space. Whoa, I couldn't wait to graduate. Now I have no idea. If you're graduating high school, you don't know whether you're going to get a job, maybe you're going off to college. You graduate from college, now you're supposed to act like an adult. Yeah, liminal space is not knowing where precisely, and you're not confident. Another example, when you get married, you think, back here, you're planning the wedding, picking out the outfits, got the ring, it's all what you're hoping, I'm going to get married, then all of a sudden you say those vows, even if you've lived together, now you're saying those vows, and it's like, whoa, now I'm supposed to be a wife, or a spouse, or a partner, or a husband. Don't know exactly what that's going to look like. This is exactly what happens when you get the cancer diagnosis. This is exactly what it's like. You're kind of living along in your life, you're having a good time, you're thinking things are fine. For me, I'm 73 years old at that point. I'm going for my mammogram, life is good. I've just moved to the lodge over here, going to go see family and friends and travel. Cancer diagnosis. Whoa! You don't know what's coming. And liminal space is where I want you to think about it. And this is what Kirsty did so beautifully, is she owned it. So many people that have a cancer diagnosis, or ALS, or COPD, lupus, any of those diseases that we know are going to be really serious, people put their head in the sand. It's like, okay, I'll just let the doctors take care of that. Well, of course you want the doctors to take care of your body, but what are you going to do about these other pieces? So when we talk about the mental part, I want to offer you a resource. Because my promo said I'm going to do whoop, not yet. I'm ahead of the game there. We'll go there in a minute. Here's a resource called 5 Wishes. Tracy has been good enough to give me a little table over there Go in the door, turn right, and I've got some of these if you want to look at 5 wishes. The point of this is when you're in liminal space with a cancer diagnosis and everything looks so vague, you can control some of what you're thinking about. And here's what I mean by that. You can't control all of it, but you can stop worrying obsessively and you can start taking proactive action. Remember Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Number 1, be proactive. I suggest you get a copy of 5 Wishes and you fill it out. I'm going to tell you more about this in a minute. In our culture, we are death averse. In our culture, we are death. I'm an end-of-life doula. I sit all the time with people who are dying and their families. We're all going to die. I did a workshop and a woman sitting up here said, well, I think we're probably all going to die. And I said, you can take the word probably right out of there. Yeah, we're all going to die. So now you've got cancer. You have mortality awareness. I love that phrase. You have mortality awareness in a big way. 5 Wishes is a document that will let you take charge of where you are right then and there. This is like advanced directives, but better. If you have farmland to will or a lot of money, you need a lawyer to do some formal advanced directives. Let me say that again. If you have a lot of farmland that you need to will or a lot of money, you need an attorney. But you do not need to spend money on an attorney figuring out who gets grandma's rocking chair, nor do you need to spend money on an attorney figuring out how you want to be cared for in hospice, or if you want to go to hospice, or where you want to die. 5 Wishes is a legal document, and by that I mean if you sign it and you have 2 witnesses who are not connected with you, not your doctor, not your sister, it's legal in Nebraska. This is a phenomenal document. It's not expensive, and it lets you think about all those kinds of things. Who gets grandma's rocking chair? Set up a system. If you have 3 kids, set it up. I encourage everybody over 18 to fill this out. Why? Because I just sat with a family whose 19-year-old son was killed in a tragic accident in farm country up in the middle of the state, and the family sat around for hours and days figuring out where to put his ashes with Grandpa up on the hill where the family's buried, or down at the lake where he loved to fish. If at one dinner conversation they had said to their kids, when you die, where do you want to be buried? They would have had it solved. I've spent time over here at the lodge with a family who were miserable trying to find the piece of paper that had the favorite hymn of the woman who had died. And they knew it was in that apartment somewhere. Put it right in here. There's some funny things in here. One of them, it asks you, would you like to be, if you're in your hospice care, would you like to be massaged with hot oil? And one of the men where I live went, ooh, I said, don't check that box. So it asks you some really, really good questions. I'll be over at the table if you want to hear more about 5 Wishes. So my point is, the doctors are helping, the medical team, the nurses, the wonderful Michaelas and Tracy's are helping us take care of our physical selves, whether you're a caregiver or a cancer patient survivor. Now I'm saying mentally, we're all going to be concerned and be thinking differently, which is the point that Kirsty made. Kirsty, thank you. Now I'm saying to you, take charge. Take charge of some of your thinking. Set things up. People say, oh, we don't want to talk about that. You're going to be fine. They're the same ones that I have to sit with while they argue and get into debates after, it's too late for you to have something to say about it. Emotionally, which is the next piece, I want to talk to you about how you deal with some feelings and give you 2 strategies. One is, tears are a river that leads somewhere. Tears are a river that leads somewhere. Please don't feel ashamed if you're crying, as all of you, including Allie and Kirsty and so on. This is a tough time to go through. Please don't let people say to you, or get embarrassed, and oh, I'm so sorry you're crying, did I upset you? And please don't you say to people, oh, I'm so sorry I'm crying. Oh, I'm so sorry, I should be stronger, I shouldn't cry. No, tears are a river that leads somewhere. Tears are the symptom of something going on in your feeling level, in your emotions, that are really worth stopping and evaluating. Tears are a symptom. Tears are a symptom of something deeper that needs to be processed. And that we know from all the medical work that we've heard about, if you don't process the emotions, it will affect you. It'll affect you physically. Your physical health, that's why the circles overlap. Your physical health is directly impacted by how you feel and whether you can process those feelings. When you're scared, when you're angry. And the second thing is bundles of feelings. I love that expression. Bundles of feelings, over here. Bundles of feelings is the idea to give yourself permission to feel 2 or 3 things at the same time. And what I mean about like that is that you are angry and you're crying and you're frustrated and you're venting, and then something you say or something one of your friends says makes you giggle, and then you feel guilty because, wait a minute, we're just talking about cancer and we're talking about, and now I'm laughing. That's perfectly fine, and that's human nature. And I love that the psychologists have taught us the phrase bundles of feelings, and that you can feel all of this at the same time, and that's normal. And like the tears, you don't need to apologize for that. Now, I made myself promise that I would look down at my notes, so I didn't leave anything out because I wanted to be sure to think about this. When we think about the spiritual part, I want to talk about pain and suffering and connectedness, and give you a couple of strategies for that. When I say spiritual, I'm not talking about religion. Let me say that real clearly. I'm not talking about whether you follow Muhammad or Buddha or Jesus or the Torah. I'm not talking about your belief system, because that's how you process your spirituality. Let me say that again. Your belief system is how you process your spirituality. You used every word except soul, and Allie, you did too. This is what some of us would call your soul, your spirit, the light of goodness, of life that's in you. I've studied this stuff forever, and I love it. Einstein said, now get this, Einstein said, energy never dies. Energy never dies. It's just transformed into something else. So I believe, in the light of me, that my energy, my light is there. Someday, probably sooner than a lot of you, because some of us are older, our body, keep looking at Dad. My body's going to die someday. That's that mortality awareness. Someday my body's going to die. I believe that this life force that's in me lives on in some form. There's a thing called cosmic consciousness. I believe this cosmic consciousness, that somehow my spirit connects. And somehow, and by nature of that, if there is cosmic consciousness, if I have a spirit, doggone, it can suffer too. My spirit can suffer too. My soul can suffer too. This is probably the most ignored part of the cancer journey. And there are books written about this. This one's called The American Book of Living and Dying, Lessons in Spiritual Healing. There are people who spend their life studying what it means to have spiritual healing. It's real, and if you've not thought a lot about this, I'm going to give you 2 examples, and then I encourage you, find somebody to talk about, because like your feelings when you're crying, there's a symptom there that there's something that needs to be addressed. This is going to sound very familiar to Kirsty and Allie. The first part of spiritual pain is you lose sense of purpose. You lose your sense of purpose. And during cancer, it's almost, I can remember over here where I live in January and February, Allie was my hero. I was so sick, and I kept saying, my gastrointestinal was all screwed up, and my mouth was so sore I couldn't eat, and my hair had fallen out. And I thought, if Allie can do it, by darn, I can do it too. And so that was a lot of, what was my purpose? Sitting there, I didn't leave my apartment for 8 months. Except to go to doctor's appointments, because I didn't want to get COVID or RSV on top of everything else. So what is my sense of purpose? Sitting there in that chair in my apartment for 8 months. One of my purposes was knowing more about college basketball than any 78-year-old woman I know, because I watched a lot of basketball. And I want to tell you my favorite story about purpose. About 10 years ago, I was teaching a senior women's group. We'd been together for, years and years and years. And we were talking about purpose. Now, purpose also wanes in aging. As people get older, They lose, you don't have a job, you're not a mother and dad anymore, you're maybe not mowing the lawn or going to work every day. So purpose is a problem in that liminal space with cancer, but purpose is also a problem with aging. So I said to the women that were in this study group, when I get really old, I want to think about this purpose and try to get a handle on something. And I'm looking around at this women, and one of them is a retired hospice nurse. And I said, okay, like if I'm in hospice and I'm really, really, really sick, I hope my purpose is to be kind and welcoming to all the nurses and the aides that come in to help me. And she said, the hospice nurse, if you're able to pull that off, you'll get your diaper changed first. So that's my way of telling you, you can always find meaning. You can always find purpose. And that's part of dealing with this idea of spiritual distress, is whatever is happening in your life today, whether you're 90, I have a wonderful friend over there, he's 97, and he's found purpose every day, or cancer patients, caregivers, find some sense of purpose. And the second thing that I want to talk to you about with spiritual distress is forgiveness. And I love it that the people who study this talk about forgiveness is the common cold of spiritual distress. Let me say that again. Forgiveness is the common cold of spiritual distress. So what that means is when someone's in spiritual distress, struggling for this idea of feeling connected, it's forgiving first yourself. When I got the cancer diagnosis both times, I have like a friend in town who's like a brother. He's so dear to me. He's a retired pathologist. And he said to me, Jen, whatever you do, do not waste 1 minute trying to figure out why you have cancer. If we knew that, they would have cured it. Because we all do that. We don't forgive ourselves. What if I'd exercised more? What if I'd eaten right? What if I don't go there? And I think this is a retired doctor who taught at the med school and the dental school. I mean, he's a star. Jen, don't spend 1 minute trying to figure out why you have cancer, what you did wrong, or what brought you there. If we knew, we would have cured it. So first, as cancer patients, survivors, caregivers, we forgive ourselves. And then the real tricky one is finding ways to forgive the other people around you that you might have harmed. If you want some language around that, I'll help you figure that out. Or if you want to ask forgiveness from people, or you want to offer forgiveness for people. That's the common cold of spiritual distress. Spiritual distress is a very, very real thinking. So I want to say now, by way of pulling this all together, there is liminal space in the cancer journey, and that liminal space of stepping into the unknown is not just what's going to happen to your body. And we sure think about our bodies with what chemotherapy does, how we feel so rotten a lot of the time. But there's also that liminal space of our thinking, because we're not thinking as we did before. We're in liminal space with our feelings. We're feeling things we hadn't felt before. We're not sure what to do with that. And we're also having spiritual distress in that liminal space. We can't go back to just tra-la-la, life is fine, I'm wonderful, I'll worry about forgiveness later. We are in that liminal space whenever we're in that cancer journey, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally and spiritually. So, and I think one of the other speakers used this, I want to let cancer be my teacher. I want to let cancer be my teacher. So what can I learn about myself and the world if I embrace this liminal space? Here's a quote I love. I am no longer afraid of the storms, for I am learning to sail my ship. Let me say it again. I am no longer afraid of the storms, for I am learning to sail my ship. And Allie's sailing her ship and Kirsty's sailing her ship. It means taking control, taking charge, not just letting the doctors and the medical team be figured. You want to work in team? They're our team. We want to work with them. We don't ignore them. It's not like we're not talking back and forth. But we also want to think about what can we do with the other parts. There's a whole room full of people over there that can help you with the spiritual and the emotional and the physical and the mental part of cancer. There's a whole room of people over there that have resources for these areas. And And last but not least, one of my favorite phrases ever, I learned from a cancer survivor from, I think you were there that day, Allie, Minneapolis. She taught us about twisted gifts. And I love the idea of twisted gifts. And by that it means not a gift you would ever set out to find for yourself. In other words, we didn't all want cancer or to take care of somebody with cancer. But Allie's been my twisted gift for a long time, as is Tracy. Kirsty's my new twisted gift. Also, I think you used a bigger word than I did. I love my new big words. That's one of the fun part of cancer is you learn all these big words. My cancer is oligometastatic. If you'd like to hear about my 7-syllable word, I'd be glad to tell you that later. Yeah, you learn big words. You learn things you didn't ever really want to know. You know, I had my full body PET scan yesterday. I'm getting good at PET scans because I'll have one every 6 months now for the rest of my life. I've got, you know, I'm thinking when people say they have to have a PET scan, I think, sit, talk to me, I can help you. Let me tell you what it's like. The diet sucks. You can't eat anything but bacon and eggs for 24 hours. But the process itself, there's nothing to it. And so these are what I mean by twisted gifts. I am a bigger, better, more deep, more understanding person for having had cancer. So if the cancer journey is about total well-being, allowing myself to learn, let cancer be my teacher in the liminal space, and accepting and celebrating the twisted gifts, this is my wish for all of you. Thank you.